So the first of the three types of memory, according to the three-component model, is sensory memory. So what is sensory memory? Sensory memory is what briefly holds sensory information. So this is all that information that our sensory receptors bring to the brain. So our sensory registers are a subsystem of the sensory memory. So that's the initial information processors, right? So again, remember how we talked about this. We talked about the senses. We talked about how the sensory information goes from the receptors to the brain. And so that's kind of what sensory memory is it's that the first step in sensory information getting processed is first there's the sensory memory before we get the full process of the information. So there are two types of sensory registers. The first is the iconic stores. So this holds visual information, and this lasts about a fraction of a second. Okay, so it's very short. You're not even going to really be able to comprehend what's happening, obviously, because it's such a short amount of time. And then the second type of sensory registers is an echoic or echoic, you can think of, right? Think of echoes. So that's how you can remember that it holds auditory information. So echoic stores hold auditory information. And this does last a bit longer. So this lasts about 2 seconds long. We see this a lot with, I don't know if you've ever been to the doctors before, and they make you listen with these weird headphones, and there's like a beep sound, and then you have to tell them if you heard it or not. That kind of thing. Sometimes then you'll respond before you even process that you heard something, and that's thanks to this sensory memory. We've got iconic stores, which holds visual information. It's very quick. We've got echoic store, which holds auditory information and lasts a bit longer. Now you'll notice how we're talking about only two of the senses, visual and auditory, and memory is often focused on just the visual and auditory information. So obviously other types of sensory information is also processed and can play a role in memory, but we tend to focus on these two senses. Oh, my computer's not working. Okay, so how do we measure our sensory memory? So what we're measuring is the capacity, or how much we can hold, and the duration, so how long we can hold it. And this is usually done with iconic sensory register. So again, iconic is the visual. So this was first done by a dude named Sperling in 1960s. And what he did was there was an array of letters would flash very quickly on a screen, and then the participants just had to report as many letters as possible. So an example would be this array right here. This would flash for a very short amount of time. And when he asked people about what they saw, then he was asking them about both the capacity and the duration. So how much can you remember? And then how long after seeing it do you remember it? And he also would then alter the amount of time that you saw it. So here's just an example of what they do. So there are a few different types. There's the whole report. So for the whole report, there'd be this array would flash, and they'd have to do it, and so this guy, he remembered 5 of them, not bad. We also have something called a partial report. So the whole report is they just do this, and the partial report is they only have to report part of it. So usually what they'd have to report would be just a certain line of this. So we'll see this here. So here we've got a partial report where he only needs to remember the top line, for instance. So they've got to focus on it and then only report one thing. Now, during a partial report, then they'd also sometimes do a thing called a tone immediate or a tone delay. And that's pretty much just combining the visual and auditory, so the iconic and echoic stores at the same time. So for the tone immediate partial report, then what they do is they would play either a high tone, medium tone, or low tone. And what the participant would have to do is pay attention and know that he needs to which line to report based on the tone. So based on the high tone, he needs to report the top line. If he hears a medium tone, he needs to report the medium or the middle line. If he hears a low tone, he needs to report the bottom line. So he'll be giving that information, and then again, this will flash as he's hearing something. So the sound and the flash happen at the exact same time. Okay? Now, with the partial report tone delay, what happens is this will flash. So the letter array will flash, and then there'll be a delay of, say, a second or half a second. It can be very quick, and then you'll hear a tone. So in this example here, he saw the array, it flashed, it was gone, and then he heard a medium tone. So he knows that he needs to report the middle line, but because there's this delay, then he can't remember as much. So all he got was B. So you can see with the immediate tone that he was actually able to report the entire line. But when there's a delay, then he can't report as well. And this is why? Well, remember that the iconic stores last a fraction of a second. So these letters have left his iconic store already by the time the tone has been played. Whereas with the immediate tone, then his iconic stores still contain these letters. Okay? Now that's it for the sensory memory, and the next lecture will cover short-term and long-term.